Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast. This is your place to get the latest up-to-date health and wellness information specifically for women, while providing you practical tools you can implement today. I'm Dr. Caitlin Sazowski, and I wanted to personally thank you for spending part of your day with me. Hello, Women in Wellness Tribe. It is Dr. Caitlin, and I have a very special guest. I'm actually so super excited to have this conversation. It might get, you're actually going to see me get real geeky, guys, because this is one of my favorite topics. So who we have the pleasure of speaking with today is Dr. Al Dannenberg, who is a dentist, but he's a really special dentist. He was a periodontist and was in private practice for 44 years and incorporated ancestral nutrition and lifestyle with his leading edge laser protocols to treat periodontal disease. So I'm not going to read because he has a very fascinating bio. I'm going to put it in the show notes, guys. Like, you need to read this. And he has all of these amazing literature that he's writing. We know some of the same dentists that we were talking about before hitting record, but we're not just going to talk about periodontal disease, although I'm sure that's going to come up in conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about how majority of infections start in the mouth. Aren't I right, or am I wrong, Dr. Al?
You are 50% correct.
Hey, that's only that's a D. I am not a D student.
First of all, I am very controversial. So what I am going to talk about, not everybody believes, but it is based on science. The sad thing about medical science is that anybody can prove almost anything with a study. So not only does it have to be reported in a peer-reviewed manner, meaning that a lot of medical people make sure it's true before it's printed, but it has to be reproducible, meaning that that study in the United States has to be done in England, and it has to be done in France, with independent researchers, and they get the same results, because if it's not repeatable, something's wrong with those results. So I can tell you that everything I talk about has been repeated at least a couple times. The interesting thing is that most people, once it's reported like that, don't connect the dots. And once the dots are connected in the medical geeky community, it doesn't get to the clinician who's actually treating real people and not rats and mice for another 20 years, which is really unfortunate and sad. And it's not definitely getting to the dental schools to teach the new students the new science. So it's a troubling problem, but it's fun. If you like puzzles, it's fun to be part of it and do the research, connect the dots, and make assumptions that maybe no one has made before. And that's why I'm controversial.
Well, that's all good. I love thought-provoking conversations, to say the least. And I do believe that we don't always have to agree with everything, as long as, we're open-minded to hearing new possibilities or new potential directions to take things, because the moment that we're just so focused on what we know and what we think we know, that's when everything goes out the window, especially as a clinician. As you know, the moment we think we know everything is the moment we do nobody any kind of service. So,
well, you are talking my language, and I'm not sure if we're going to get into it or not, but certainly dentistry is that way. What I'm going to talk about with the gut and the oral cavity is that way. And I have an interesting cancer story that if I did not think outside of the box, my prediction from my oncologist was I should have died by the end of 2018. So yeah, out of the box thinking makes a whole lot of sense. But let me get back to your question, and that is, does disease start in the mouth? And that's only 50% correct. And let me give you a reason or an explanation about that. Yes, the mouth is the beginning of all the food that we're going to take into our body. So I guess you could say it starts in the mouth. But there are certain things that are very interesting. For example, there was a study that was published somewhere around 2010, if you want to get a little geeky. And it was a small study, but that's okay. It's a study that was fascinating. And that was that the US population, the hypothesis or the statement of fact was the US population has a high prevalence of gingival inflammation. As a matter of fact, they stated 94% of the US population has some form of bleeding or inflammation in the mouth.
And
now that's amazing. That's
is-
amazing.
Bleeding's problematic.
It is problematic, but how many people think it's normal? For example, a woman puts on her makeup, she's looking in the mirror, she's putting on makeup on, and what would happen if that woman were to see a drop of blood just drip out of her ear?
Oh, she'd freak out.
Yeah, but how about if she's now flossing and brushing her teeth and she spits in the sink and it's a little pink? No big deal. When she goes to the dental hygienist to get her teeth clean and she's thinking everything is great, and she asks the hygienist, and maybe it is pretty good, and she asks the hygienist, well, how does my mouth look? And the hygienist says, oh, your mouth looks fantastic. There's just a little bleeding in the lower right molar area. The hygienist is giving the impression because she thinks it's okay, but bleeding is a sign of infection. How infected do you want to be before you make a change in your life? So that's a sign of inflation or infection. Where did that come from? Is it because you didn't floss well? Well, I know, practicing for 44 years, many patients know how to brush, know how to floss. They do it sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. Every time they come into the office, they have bleeding gums. Why is that? Well, the answer actually is there's something wrong with their gut microbiome, the garden of bacteria in their gut called dysbiosis. And that change in the healthy bacteria in their gut affects everything down the line. It causes the immune system to become overactivated. It causes the lining of the gut, which is only 1 cell layer thick, to break down and create small holes. It causes the junk in the gut that always is there, and it should go to the other end of the gut, which is called the rectum, and get out of the body. However, some of these products that aren't getting excreted are leaking through these holes, getting into the bloodstream, which is called metabolic endotoxemia. These very highly infectious and damaging substances create systemic inflammation that affects every organ system and the mouth. And the mouth, because the immune system is compromised, the mouth's bacteria, which is loaded with wonderful gardens of bacteria, change their composition, and potentially bad bacteria overgrow, and you develop infection. It's compounded by that is not healthy. It's also compounded by emotional stress, which affects the gut microbiome, over-exercise, under-exercise, poor sleep habits, and of course, the chemicals that we're ingesting, the dirty electromagnetic fields that you and I are looking at right now between ourselves.
Oh, what are you talking about? Wi-Fi.
This is affected.
Yeah.
So the majority of infection in the mouth starts in the gut, and then it changes the mouth microbiome. However, you can have infection start in the mouth without having damage to the gut if you have poor dentistry. Let's say fillings that don't fit, crowns that don't fit. Some dentists cement the crowns and the excess cement gets under the gum. It's almost invisible, but it causes severe inflammation in the gum tissue. Sometimes filling materials have chemicals that are very damaging to the body that leach out of these fillings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are so many things that can happen. Root canals that are failing, extraction sites that don't heal properly. All of these elements can cause serious toxic infection without you even knowing it. You don't have to have swelling and pain. So that is a sign, a source of infection in the mouth. But if that's not the case, I would tell you the far majority, 95% or more of infection starts in the gut.
Well, you know what? I'm not totally wrong though, because the mouth and the gut are one tube. So there's just a problem in the later part of the tube instead of the beginning.
You're absolutely correct. And that tube, which is mucous membrane, and the bacteria lining all the mucous membranes of all the body parts communicate with one another. So all of these bacteria talk back and forth, and they talk, which is interesting, they talk not only chemically with like cytokines and a bunch of other chemicals that communicate back and forth, they talk in frequencies. They are electric beings. We are an electric being. The only reason we're alive is because each of our cells have batteries inside called ATP, mitochondria, that create the energy in ATP that makes the battery function. And these cells have different frequencies that can communicate and tell the immune system, I'm a good bacteria or I'm a bad bacteria. It's very complicated, very exciting. And the treatment for any disease has to involve the huge microbiome, especially in the gut and the mouth, so that we can get a therapeutic healing result. We have 38 trillion microbes in our body and only 30 trillion human cells. We are more microbial than human, which is quite fascinating.
It is. And yet here we are trying to kill everything.
We are.
Baffles me.
We
Ultimately, we're breaking down our digestion and our immune system and throwing off hormones and you name it. So guys, if you're listening to this, understand bacteria are not all bad. It depends on the environment they're in as to how they function. So, you said something super interesting is that plaque isn't bad.
Yeah, so let me tell you, dental plaque is healthy.
What? The dentists always tell you they're bad and you got to scrape it and...
Until it's not healthy. Let me tell you an interesting thing. So the mouth is quite a fascinating structure. And we have these teeth in our mouth. These teeth are hard. They're made up of what's called hydroxyapatite, very, very crystalline structures. And this hard structure pierces the skin of the mouth, the gum tissue, and embeds itself into sterile bone. It's the only place in the body where a hard structure pierces the skin and embeds itself into sterile bone. So it's very unique, and the body has to protect itself because in the mouth, obviously, there are bacteria. If this structure, this tooth, were not protected somewhere, then the bacteria would slide down this hard structure like a sliding board, get into the bone, infect our jawbone, and we would be pretty sick people. I mean, we would lose our jaw because of infection.
Yep.
So over evolution, our bodies have evolved to develop what's called a biofilm, a healthy biofilm. We call it dental plaque. And that plaque surrounds the gum tooth margin. How do I know it's healthy? Well, if we look at human skull remains, human jaw remains from 10 to 20,000 years ago, because we have segments of these jaw remains. If we look at the bone structure, for the most part, the bone is healthy. Therefore, it doesn't have periodontal disease, no active gum disease. We look at the teeth. For the most part, these teeth are strong. They are not decayed. They may be worn, they may be cracked, but they are not decayed from infection. But we also can see a calcified material at the base of the tooth at the jawbone, which is really the dental plaque that had gotten hard like tartar or calculus. And that never caused gum disease or tooth decay in our primitive skull samples. That indicates that this bacteria is in a state of balance, not virulent. So the dental plaque has some very important purposes because the tooth pierces the gum tissue and it's literally embedded in the bone. This dental plaque has three purposes that are identifiable. Number one, that dental plaque is made up of 200-300 or so different species of microbes, and they produce a variety of hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is extremely caustic and killing to other bacteria. So other potential bacteria in the mouth are killed by the dental plaque before they get to the surface where the tooth is the gum. Dental plaque also is like a gatekeeper. It allows the minerals, the wonderful supply of minerals in the saliva that is flowing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, flows more in the day than nighttime, but it's always there. And those minerals pierce and go through the dental plaque, and the dental plaque allows those minerals to get into the root to remineralize and harden the tooth as necessary. The dental plaque also has chemical buffers, meaning that they actually protect the acid level in the dental plaque so that it doesn't go below 5.5, which would cause tooth decay. So it balances the acid level so it doesn't get so acidic to create tooth decay. So that dental plaque is very critical. Now, there are other substances, elements under the gum, the fibers of the tooth. The immune system is underneath that area to protect the tooth and the bone. But the first line of defense is a healthy dental plaque. So what do? We scrub this dental plaque because our hygienist told us to always remove the dental plaque. They even give us these disclosing tablets that are red in color that will show where the plaque is so you can literally remove it. And by the time you scrub it, you probably irritated the gum and it's bleeding because you tore the gum tissue. But that's not so terrible because once you do that and you allow it to regrow, the dental plaque will grow back within 12 hours. But then the dental hygienist really wants to kill this stuff, so they're going to give you some antimicrobial mouthwashes or toothpaste to kill it even more, or they're going to use xylitol, which is going to prevent the dental plaque from adhering to the tooth surface, or they're going to use other types of methods, even therapeutic methods on a daily basis to kill all of the remaining healthy bacteria in the mouth. That's not the way to do it. I mean, if you had ants running on your floor in the kitchen, you could burn down the house to kill the ants. But there are easier ways just to get rid of something that is a nuisance. And if you have unhealthy dental plaque, you need to know how to clean your mouth properly, which I can show people how to do, but you need to get to the source. And generally, it's the gut. So we have to make sure the gut is healthy, create an anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense diet to feed the gut properly, and we can then treat any active disease in the mouth to get a really healthy environment. And that will make the whole body healthy and balance the hormones, which is critical. You have a healthy gut microbiome and a healthy diet, your hormones balance.
100%. I see that all the time. Before we jump to the gut and balancing the gut and what needs to happen in order to balance the mouth microbiome, because I hope you guys are understanding, and Dr. Alec, correct me if I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. In order for us to have a healthy mouth, we have to have a healthy gut. So if we don't address both areas, and there's certain things that are going to need to be done in the mouth and in the gut, nothing's going to happen. You're never going to get to that next level.
Absolutely. It's actually going to go back and forth. You're going to make the mouth healthy because you're going to kill everything, yet the gut is not going to be doing well because you're damaging the microbiome, that all mucous membrane tissue. The gut gets even worse, and then it goes back to the mouth, and it's a vicious cycle.
Mhm.
You need to treat both, and it should be concurrently. You should have a dentist treating the mouth that knows the biology of what's going on, and make sure that if the dentist doesn't know how to treat the gut, someone understands that we need to treat the gut um, correctly, not killing everything either. We need to rebalance, repopulate healthy bacteria to crowd out the pathogenic bacteria.
100%. Before we jump into that, though, you said something,
Mhm.
and I'm so glad you said it because I have been saying this for years. Xylitol.
Yeah.
Gosh, do you know how many people in the natural community are like, oh, use these xylitol pops for your kids? Your kids have cavities? Here, use the xylitol pop. Use the toothpaste with xylitol in it. And I'm like, you're making it worse. Can you please explain why xylitol is so problematic for not just the mouth, but how the mouth it'll translocate to problems in the gut?
Absolutely. First of all, xylitol kills bacteria and it prevents dental plaque from forming on the surface of the tooth. Those two things, if you're following what I've already said, are no-nos if you want to have a healthy mouth. Yes, it will kill bacteria. That's not our goal. Our goal is to balance bacteria, not to kill bacteria. Now, if you have infection that's out of control and you need therapeutic treatment, you might need something antibacterial, antimicrobial in the mouth. I get it. For 7 to 10 days, I get it. But make sure that you understand you need to repopulate that correctly and understand how to do it. And you just can't take a probiotic for a week and all of a sudden it gets better. You have to understand what needs to be done. But then xylitol, when it gets into the gut, damages the gut microbiome. How many people have, for example, xylitol gum? Um, they chew xylitol gum and they're gum chewers. So they chew 10 pieces of xylitol gum and all of a sudden they have a lot of gas and a lot of pain in their gut. Why is that? Do you think xylitol is working good things in the gut? It's not. It's very damaging to the gut. So now xylitol exists in natural foods, in fruits and things. That's totally different. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a chemical xylitol, probably made from corn husks that are GMO to start with. So it's very, very damaging to the human body. And I don't like chemicals to create an answer, just like fluoride. I am not a favorite, in favor of fluoride being painted on a tooth. If you want to stop tooth decay, this is a hard subject to consider, but if you want to stop tooth decay, stop eating sugar. The
What?
research, the research is very clear. If you don't eat added and processed sugars, you will not get tooth decay. There was a paper published in the Journal of Dental Research, I don't know, 6 years ago, that reviewed all the literature, and the conclusion was sugar, processed sugar, is the cause of tooth decay, even if you're using fluoride. The water is fluoridated. All of that is just a barrier, a painted barrier to the tooth. Yes, it will slow down the decay. That's not what we really want. We want to get to the cause. The cause is the bacteria that's overgrowing and what's feeding the overgrowing bacteria, which is sugar. And it's not starch. Starch foods by themselves will not cause decay, but starchy foods, when there is sugar, complicate the process. It's the sugar, stupid. and
Oh,
and
no.
so I was seeing, for example, when I was in practice, I was doing periodontics in another practice with which was general dentistry, and they had a lot of kids and moms come in, and the moms are drinking Mountain Dew and whatever, and they're wondering why the kids have tooth decay. Oh, wait a minute. Let's start with what you're doing right now. Mountain Dew, one of the most acidic drinks, also extremely high in sugar. Even the artificial sweeteners are worse for the gut than the sugar, but in a different way. So the acids and the sugars are very, very damaging.
Oh, 100%. So thank you for doing that, because I feel like I'm turning blue in the face when I'm like, stop doing the xylitol.
But the problem is there are dental professionals out there marketing and promoting xylitol in the dental office for purchase as dental patients. And it's not a philosophy that I subscribe to, because I am all about balancing bacteria, not killing bacteria, unless, like I said, it's an acute infection. We have to get therapeutics in to control it, but understand there is no antibacterial anything that only kills bad bacteria. It also kills the good stuff too, maybe not to the same extent. But the problem is we don't want to damage the balance. We want to regain balance of the bacteria.
It is. It's a healthy balance. So I always think back to,
Mhm.
those scales, like
Right.
if the good stuff goes out of whack, something's going to happen. You can't have too much good bacteria. Some of that good's going to become commensal and start to become problematic. You have too much bad, then we all know that that causes other problems like infections, and it can go systemic and you name it. But ultimately, it's all about finding that balance and really making sure that our bodies working together. So
Absolutely.
what why don't you talk about how healthy habits do we have to do in order to rebalance the gut bacteria and in order to rebalance the mouth bacteria so that we can have an overall systemic health?
Well, we have to remove certain foods in our diet, number one. I am a strong believer in foods that have anti-nutrients in them, and I'll define those in a second. Those are elements that damage the gut and absorb minerals and pull minerals out of our saliva and our food. Those foods are not the foods our species have evolved to eat. Now, we eat them all the time, but they are not the healthy foods. And here's my controversial subject. When I say controversial, I totally agree, but some people will not. And that is, grains are unhealthy, especially the gluten grains. They have phytic acid, phytates, absorbing minerals, pulling minerals out of the saliva in the food that we're eating, and we excrete them.
Yep, so the
When,
gluten foods, guys, are wheat, rye, and barley.
yes.
Those are the big ones, the big hitters.
Right. And those foods get into the gut and damage the gut microbiome. They never get digested properly. They only get broken down to peptides, not completely all the way to the amino acids. They irritate the gut lining, create leaky gut. All the bad stuff happens because of these peptides. The other foods that are very damaging
Before
are.
we go to the other foods, can I
Mhm, mhm,
ask you a question that I get asked all the time whenever I talk about removing grains from the diet?
mhm.
Our ancestors ate them. Why is it such a
Well,
problem?
first of all, our ancestors ate them extremely rarely, not like we eat them 3 times a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and at every snack. And of course, they're eating different grains when they were eating grains, but it was very small amount of grains. Actually, if we if we look at the archaeological records of humans that have been dug up for thousands and thousands of years, we can find remnants of certain things, tools that they have used, and there can be actually nitrogen testing to determine the types of amino acids that they were eating. In other words, what kind of protein. They were primarily eating animals, not plants. We are omnivorous. We can eat both. We have a digestive system that is literally evolved to eating animal products. And I'll tell you why. You want to hear why?
Of course I do.
So we have a stomach acid of 1 to 1.3 pH, extremely acidic. It's there and it evolved to that acidity because of the microbes that were rotting meat, and it would kill those microbes as our ancestors ate that meat. that's a very protective lining. And as a matter of fact, that's why most all probiotics that you're aware of never actually get into the gut to regenerate, because they're all killed in the stomach acid. We'll talk about that in a moment if you want. But then we have very long small intestine. That long small intestine is where animal products are digested for the most part. Our other primate friends, our ancestors that are other primates that are more vegetarian, have a short small intestine. We have a very short large intestine. That's where plant foods are digested. Other primates, like apes, have very large and long large intestines. That's where the plant foods are digested, and the enzymes that their DNA can create digest those plants and other nutrients that we are unable to digest. So our digestive system leans toward an animal-based diet. And the archaeological records suggest, and nitrogen testing suggests, that our diet was more protein from animals than protein from plants.
So are you saying people just ate steaks all day?
No, not at all. But they didn't eat the steaks. They only ate a little bit of the meat, muscle meat. They ate a lot of the organs, saturated fat, and all the collagen material. When primal societies today, like the Hadza and other primal societies, there are not very many primal societies out there today, but when they hunt and they kill an animal, the first thing they do is to kill and gut the animal, remove the liver, and eat it raw right on the spot.
I've heard of
It's one of the healthiest organs.
I've heard tribes doing that with the heart.
Yes, all the organs. Yep. Yep. And so those are where the nutrients are. Those are where all the biologically available elements that we need for our body, that's where they are. We get healthier, better bioavailable vitamin C from liver than you can ever get from plants. And the liver vitamin C is heat stable, so heat doesn't damage it, but heat will destroy the vitamin C from plants.
So are you saying you get more vitamin C from liver than you do an orange or a red pepper?
Yes. So I won't eat red peppers. They're loaded with lectins and oxalates. And I will occasionally eat an orange because they're low in oxalates. My diet, I am on a carnivore diet, an animal-based diet. I will eat 90% or so animal-based foods, and that is a little bit of muscle meat and a lot of fat and organs and collagen. I will eat maybe 10% plants and vegetables, more, fruit and vegetables, more fruit than vegetables that are low in oxalates and lectins, which are the other two anti-nutrients that we need to be careful about.
So when you say collagen and fats, can you give some examples of how you're getting the collagen? Like, are you making bone broths?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So yes, I make bone broth. I have an Instant Pot, which is like an amazing toy for me.
I know, I love it.
I mean, it's amazing. So I get grass-fed, grass-finished beef bones or lamb bones, and I put them in the Instant Pot. Here's another thing. I'll diverge for a second.
Okay.
One other things that we are should be concerned about, but we don't really understand, is the water that we drink. So, and this is something that I just realized within a year or so because of my unconventional cancer protocols. I'm thinking I don't want to drink tap water. Okay, maybe that's a smart thing not to do. So I don't drink tap water. So I'm thinking I need to get filtered water. We can buy filtered water, reverse osmosis water, or we can buy tabletop filters, or we can go to the expense of putting in some very sophisticated filtering systems, and we filter out everything, and all of a sudden we have pure H2O. Basically dead water, because there's no minerals in it, there's no junk in it, but there's no minerals. Then, of course, we can say, well, that's not a problem. I'm going to put some drops, these liquid drops that somebody manufactured to get my calcium and phosphorus and potassium in the water. Should be, well, okay, now you put 3 minerals in what are 80 trace minerals that are in real spring water. So my thought process is our primal ancestors and the primal societies that live today do not drink from a sink, and they don't drink bottled filtered water. They drink spring water. So the rain comes down in the earth and it filters through the earth and through the rock formations, and all these wonderful minerals get washed from the soil into the aquifers, get into the springs, and that's where we get our drinking water, which is loaded with trace minerals. So I was going to go back to the bone broth. So the bone broth I make with the bones and use mineral water to get all those minerals, and I cook those and get the minerals and collagen from the bones. I also get...
What source do you get your mineral water? Like, where do you get your mineral water?
So I like 3 mineral waters. One is Evian from France, Evian. The other is Fiji, Fiji. And then Gerolsteiner from Germany is actually the best as far as the concentration of trace minerals per liter of water. Now, Gerolsteiner is a carbonated water, which I don't like. And you can let the water stand or boil the carbonation out if you want. But I use that. I do drink coffee, by the way. I love coffee. So I use my Gerolsteiner in pressed coffee, or if I'm making hot tea, I boil the water and all the bubbles go away, and I use that. But it is loaded with trace minerals. And
I love sparkling water.
Oh,
I enjoy it.
Have you tried Gerolsteiner?
I did once. It's not easy to find, though.
Oh, really? So all of the grocery stores in my neighborhood, I live in Charleston, South Carolina, not the biggest sophisticated city, but all the grocery stores carry Gerolsteiner.
I'm going to have to look for that more.
Ask for them.
Perfect.
It's generally where the Perrier is sold.
Yep. That's usually, I'll do that once in a while, but.
Yeah, I don't like Perrier, but I don't like the bubbles. But so the collagen is in the real fatty meats that are the least expensive, but the healthiest that you can get from a butcher. And of course, you want to have them grass-fed, grass-finished, organic stuff. So I generally make short ribs.
Short ribs.
Yeah, and ossobuco, oxtail, which is basically a cow tail, loaded with collagen. And I make that in the Instant Pot. And all of those wonderful collagen peptides melt into the liquid. And that now liquid is just phenomenal bone broth. And that's very rich in those other proteins. The proteins of collagen are not the same as protein in muscle meat, and they balance one another. So if you only eat muscle meat and no collagen, overabundance of one amino acid called melatonin, methionine, and you're not balancing out with glycine, which is very prevalent in the collagen. You need to have both, or you can have problems with quite a number of biological pathways. So you need to have both proteins.
My husband did carnivore for 30 straight days. So we were using unconventional cuts of meat. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with a few of them, like shank.
Yeah.
Like in the Instapot. It was fantastic when you cook it long.
Right.
Fantastic. It falls apart. It's really tender. Yes. And like the juice that comes out of it was super gelatinous. It was fantastic.
Right. It is the collagen, and it is the healthy part. You don't want to throw away that juice. You want to eat it. You want to mix it with the meat. You can make a soup with it or whatever, but that is part of the meat product that you need to eat.
Yep. I tell people all the time, if your bone broth is not gelatinous when it's cold, like below room temperature, it's not good. It's not doing anything.
No, it's not good. That's not what you want. It has to be very jello-y like.
And I do love that you said the quality of the animal has to be there too. You can't or you shouldn't be doing it with conventionally grown or raised animals.
No, because if you do that, they are treated with antibiotics, they're treated with hormones, and the grains that they eat create all the problems if you ate the grains yourself. So all those byproducts, and it's very loaded with omega-6 fatty acids, which are very unhealthy in abundance. So that type of meat, you'll be much better off not eating meat if you're only eating conventional grain-fed cattle. You want grass-fed, grass-finished,
Mhm.
and organic cattle or
Perfect.
lamb.
Yeah. Do you do any other animal products? Do you
Sure,
do wild caught fish or chicken
absolutely,
or?
absolutely. I do sardines, I do salmon, mussels, shrimp, oysters, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, where my home base has been for the last 4 years is Seattle. So I get all sorts of that yummy, fresh oysters and
Oh,
tons
yes,
of
good
zinc
stuff.
and minerals and yum.
Yeah.
So I'm super curious because you said you'll do a few very low oxalate, no lectin fruits, mainly
Mhm.
because a lot of that is in the vegetables. So
Yes.
what does your plant consumption look like? Like what is it
I'm
that you would eat?
I may have, and this is occasional, if you look at a plate of food and you're looking at the volume, so a percent of the plate, maybe 80 to 90% are animal-based products, and 10 to 20% are mainly the fruits and some vegetables. So the fruits would be maybe some watermelon, maybe an orange, maybe a mango or part of a mango. Um, um, Berries, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. Those types of fruits are very, very good. Avocado is excellent. That's a fruit. When it comes to vegetables, I might have some lettuce. I might have a cucumber, um, maybe some arugula. Now we're getting into an area that could become unhealthy in large quantities. So I lean towards the fruits. But here's another important thing, and that is I want to be in ketosis. So I want to be in ketosis 6 days a week. And the seventh day, I want to cycle out of ketosis and just eat carbs for the most part. And why do I want to do it? It's because what's termed as metabolic flexibility.
Mhm.
My body, your body, and every human species, so we're looking at this big picture of humans, have evolved by eating or utilizing fat for fuel mainly and carbohydrates occasionally, not the other way around. Like we eat carbohydrates for fuel almost all the time, and very, very infrequently do we burn fat for fuel because we're always burning carbs. So I want my body to burn fat. And to burn fat and produce ketones, I need to eat foods on a daily basis that literally are less than maybe 20 grams of carbs a day. So an apple, a medium-sized apple, is 17 grams of carbs. So if I'm going to eat an apple a day, that's it. I'm not going to eat 10 apples, one apple. Now, if I wanted to eat several apples, that would be my carb day. That's the day I cycle out of ketosis. So I may have several tablespoons of honey, which is extremely healthy. And by the way, honey is an animal-based food. Bees are animals. So honey is very healthy. Matter of fact, honey, this is interesting. Honey has over 200 biologically active chemicals. Honey heals tissue.
Mhm. It's great for wound
Hun-
care.
uh-huh. Honey is perfect as a toothpaste. Didn't you know that?
I think I heard
Amazing.
it and I was like, there's no way I'm brushing my teeth with honey.
Uh-huh. Honey, honey has been shown, and these are double-blind studies, honey has been shown literally to reduce the prevalence of the bacteria that cause tooth decay and gum disease. Studies have been done with children with orthodontics, and they were not brushing, and then they were brushing, and then they were brushing with honey, and honey literally removed the dental plaque that virulent, causing gum disease and tooth decay. Very interesting stuff. So you can brush with honey.
Does it have to be like raw,
Yeah, so it has to be raw
local?
honey. It should be raw and local, and or raw and manuka. Manuka is a different type of honey because there are some chemicals in manuka that are not in other honey, and that is one of the most studied and researched honeys in the world. But all honey is beneficial if it's raw. It should be raw. Now, we're not talking about the honeycomb. We're not eating the honeycomb. As a matter of fact, the honeycomb, which is very sticky, can get lodged between the teeth and actually can cause tooth decay because it concentrates the sugar of honey and it never gets washed away. But if you just eat honey and or brush your teeth with honey, it is very beneficial.
What about individuals who they obviously have metabolic issues, whether it be uncontrolled type 2 diabetes or cancer? Is honey then?
Interesting. There are studies that I've been very geeky and doing some research. There are studies that show honey are tumorigenic. They reduce the growth and spread of tumors because of all their other compounds. What was your other question?
Oh, for like uncontrolled
Oh,
diabetes,
diabetes.
that kind of thing.
There has been studies with diabetics and honey does not spike glucose in the blood like sugar would. So they've done studies with sucrose, which is table sugar, and honey. Honey and sucrose will cause the blood sugar to go up, but it would go up much quicker with sucrose, and it would stay up much longer than it would honey. So honey does not appear to be as damaging for a diabetic as you might think. Now, there are some studies that suggest that it's even beneficial. I'm not sure about that, but honey is not going to affect the blood sugar like sucrose would, even though it is basically sucrose, fructose, and glucose.
What I've read in research about honey is that it has a massive insulin spike. So my
That's not
concern
true.
with diabetics is that insulin
It's not
spike.
true. It's not true. And I've done that by using a continuous glucose monitor. So are you familiar with a continuous glucose monitor? So I put a glucose monitor on my arm for 2 weeks to understand how my glycemic variability moved back and forth, because that's a significant indication of insulin resistance or sensitivity. We want to have low variability, and the medical science shows that if you have a high glycemic variability, you have more risk of chronic disease, metabolic diseases, even cancer.
Mhm.
So I've used that, and I did test what happened when I ate honey and when I ate raw honey with nothing added other than the honey. Yes, my glucose went high, but it didn't spike. It went maybe to 140, 150. That's not so high, and it came down immediately. So all the research I read and on my personal blood work, I don't believe that that's the case. Now, if it's not in vitro, you're looking at other things, that's not really humans. I think you need to look at give honey to a human being, do glucose continuous monitoring, see not only the spike, but you want to see how long it takes to go up, how long it takes to go down, and that will be surprising. And now if you eat honey with other food, it even goes lower, or the spike is not as high as just pure honey.
Mm-hmm. From the research that I've read, and maybe it's a little different because it's been probably 3 years that I've looked into it, that the glucose spike is not always indicative of the insulin release. So, individuals that are doing the continuous glucose monitor, you are getting a really amazing reading of your your blood sugars as to exactly how you're reacting when you're reacting to them. But it doesn't exactly correlate all the time, especially with very individuals who are not metabolically flexible. They're sick, they're broken down. Their pancreas can still over respond or overreact, even though it's not showing in their blood sugars.
So the continuous glucose monitor does not directly read insulin, but that still highly correlates with the insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity, because you have to have insulin to metabolize the glucose. And so the level of it may be there's a discrepancy. But if you have a low variability of glucose, there is a good insulin sensitivity, although that level may go up and down. You have that insulin sensitivity, and the research suggests that the glucose variability, the glycemic variability, is the critical element to predict future chronic disease and cancer.
Mm. So what is it that you now, because you're not practicing in
No.
the dental office anymore.
No.
You are actually working with a dear friend of mine on, which I'm so glad that you approve of the toothpaste. So why don't you tell them like that I'm not crazy telling them they got to use Revitin.
So let's talk about toothpaste to start with, and then let's get into Revitin.
Okay.
So to clean your mouth, you need to brush at the gum line. You need to clean between the teeth. I highly recommend these little silicone interproximal brushes. The one that I like the best is called TP Easy Picks because they don't bend and break. They are soft. They don't irritate the gum. They clean unhealthy, excessive plaque off the surface. You got it.
I use
Now,
these all the
wait
time.
a minute.
But that's not the TP one.
No, those
I
are
couldn't
gum.
find those. These
Those
ones
are
are
gum.
the gum ones.
So the problem with gum,
peel.
everything is fine, but they break. You
Yep.
bend them and they break. If you bend the TP, it recoils. And all you have to do is go to Amazon, and you can buy them on Amazon. TEPE Easy Pick. You have to use the name Easy Pick. They make it in 2 sizes. You need the small to get in between the lower front teeth, and then the blue, which is the larger size, everywhere else. Stuff. Then you can use floss to remove any fibrous foods that get stuck between the contact of the teeth, but you absolutely don't want to floss under the gum because you can cut the gum, creates clefts, and that can be really damaging to the gum. And then you want to clean the surface of the tongue. And you can buy fancy tongue scrapers, but the best thing to use is to take a spoon, invert it, put the spoon as far back on the top of your tongue as you can, and press it on the tongue until you want to gag, and then pull it forward, rubbing the tongue, and this milky fluid will accumulate in the bowl of the spoon, and that's unhealthy bacteria as well as some decaying food particles.
So you don't
that's the
like,
best
are
way
you
to clean.
talking about the spoon being like this and then the
Yeah,
tongue being here
concave.
and you pull it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How about water picks?
Okay. Let's talk about water picks. Let's talk about a water pick type device rather than a brand name.
Yeah.
Water pick type device. I don't agree with them.
Mm.
And here's the reason why. The concept is you're trying to use this jet of water to wash out an infected gum space. You're not really using it to clean between the teeth because all you have to do is use the TP Easy Picks to clean between the teeth. You're trying to clean under the gum.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what you do, what most people do. The water pick device has a rheostat from 0 to 10, and 10 is the most severe shot of water. So everybody thinks that the higher pressure is the best, so they'll use anywhere from 7 to 10. So they take the water pick, put it between the teeth and angle it under the gum tissue, and they're just singing along merrily that they're cleaning out the gum tissue. Theoretically, that's supposed to work, but here's what really happens. And I'll use an analogy. Let's say you have a deck on the back of your house, and it's fall, and all the leaves are falling on your deck, and you have a leaf blower, and you want to blow all those leaves away. That's kind of what a water pick should do, blow all the bacteria away. But if you get to a certain angle, where the corner of the deck is like a 90-degree angle, and you can take that leaf blower and angle the leaves so into that corner that you pack them tightly in the corner. They don't disperse, they get just tighter. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to use the water pick under the gum and you really don't know the angle you're using, because there's no way to know, that shot of water, which is so strong, can take the microscopic bacteria and food particles, and as the gum goes down the side of the root, it gets more narrow. So you pack the debris deeper into a tighter surface, and you can develop periodontal abscesses, even though you think you're cleaning it out. Now, that's not a good thing. If you even were not doing that, if the water pick literally washing everything away, and now those unhealthy tissues, because you're using it because you have a periodontal pocket, that's space, those areas maybe used to bleed and you need to have them heal, but you're using the water pick twice a day, the gum tissue, the epithelial cells that are trying to heal, every time they try to heal, you break them apart. It's just like if you had a scab on your arm and every day you peeled the scab off. You didn't even let the scab form correctly, and the skin can't heal. By the time it does heal, you have all scar formation. If you use a water pick that's still cleaning everything out, but you keep using it, the epithelial cells that are trying to heal together cannot heal together, and they tear and they scar or they heal improperly. So I don't like a water pick. If you have deep pockets, you have periodontal disease, you need to treat it appropriately. In my opinion, you need to have some very, very specialized periodontal laser surgery, which is not painful at all. As a matter of fact, it's the least painful procedure you might imagine. And it not only will treat the disease, it will stimulate bone to grow. And I was using laser surgery for the last 6-7 years of my practice, getting results that I could never get from conventional periodontal surgery. We could literally stimulate bone to grow, which is quite exciting.
Lasers are pretty remarkable.
Yes, they are. But the wavelength is a critical part. So there are many, many different lasers in dentistry, and some lasers are not efficient in stimulating bone to grow. They'll kill a lot of stuff, but they won't grow bone because they don't stimulate the mitochondria, precursor bone cells in the jawbone. Mm-hmm. But there are certain lasers that will do that.
So how about toothpaste?
Okay, that's what we were talking about. So toothpaste. So when you're brushing your teeth, you could just brush with salt water, or you could brush with maybe a little bit of coconut oil and a little bit of baking soda. But if you want, and you don't need anything else, but if you want a toothpaste, if you look in the marketplace, there is so much out there that contains many, many harmful ingredients. And then there are so many that call them holistic or healthy toothpastes, and they have either xylitol or nanoparticles of hydroxyapatite. Well, new research shows that nanoparticles of hydroxyapatite are cytotoxic to human cells. Not a good thing to put in your mouth. No. They have other chemicals. The best toothpaste I have found is called Revitin. And Revitin, if you're looking at the ingredients, are really pretty, the ingredient list is harmless. You could eat Revitin and it wouldn't harm you. So I like Revitin. And as a matter of fact, I am friends of Dr. Jerry Curatola, who is the CEO of Revitin. And he has asked me to be on the scientific advisory board. And we're doing a double-blind study to show how Revitin, haven't done the study yet, so I can't tell you this is going to happen, but we want to try to show that it will change unhealthy dental plaque to a healthier form of dental plaque if you're using it correctly. And that would be a great thing.
That would be. And I know, like I was sharing with you, my dentist has found that when doing scrapings of the plaque, that the bad bacteria completely went away when they switched over. So individuals that were constantly fighting to get their periodontal disease under control were finally able to do it when they started using a toothpaste that was supporting their oral microbiome versus trying to bat it down and make it worse.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree. And that's why I'm excited about Revitin.
Awesome. So,
but let me just interject that is not the only answer to gum disease. The gut is a critical element. The diet is a critical element. and then the cleaning methods are critical.
Yep. So if you have a problem in your mouth, you have a hormone problem, an immune problem, you've got to address the gut, guys, and you've got to address the mouth at the same time. I cannot over express the importance of making sure that your mouth and your gut are healthy and functioning as one, because again, it is one healthy tube, or at least it should be.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. L, I like
Yes.
to ask my guests a few fun little questions to.
Oh no.
Yep. And I didn't give you any heads up about this.
That's good.
So I'm just going to ask you a few questions just so that we get to know you a little bit on more of the personal side. So what is your favorite beverage?
My favorite beverage is water.
Nice. Still water.
Absolutely, without a question. That's everything I drink.
Okay.
Second favorite beverage is coffee.
Okay. What is your favorite meal?
So one of the foods that I make on a regular basis, which is quite good, is I get ground, grass-fed, grass-finished Wagyu beef from a farm in Florida. And we make burgers with it, and we make it in a Ninja Foodie grill. I have it on my website. So let me just tell you what that is. So we take burgers and we mix it, a pound of burger, ground beef. We put a teaspoon of salt, Himalayan salt. We put an egg. We have a half cup of chopped onions and a half cup of chopped shiitake mushrooms that I've already stir-fried or pan cooked so that they're soft, and we cook it in grass-fed, grass-finished ghee or butter. Mix it into the ground beef, make these patties, and then put them in the food grill. We're going to do that tonight, by the way. And the Ninja Foodie grill is an indoor grill that doesn't even produce smoke. It's just an amazing contraption. It's on Amazon. And so in 6 minutes, those burgers are medium rare, juicy, unbelievable, favorite meal.
Okay. So I'm assuming that would be your last meal then, if you knew you were having a last meal.
Yeah, so I generally only eat one meal a day, sometimes two. And the only reason is I'm not hungry. So when you're on a carnivore diet and I'm eating a fat to protein ratio of 2-to-1 measured in grams, that fat really satisfies your hunger. So a person that's really on a carnivore diet, and I'm sure you experienced that, you're not hungry a lot, as a matter of fact. You could go for hours, maybe even days without eating. Primal ancestors certainly did that because you're in ketosis and you're burning fuel, but fat for fuel. But basically, I will eat maybe 1 or 2 meals a day. If I'm only eating 1 meal a day, my dinner generally is in the 4 to 5 o'clock range. And if I'm eating 2 meals a day, my first meal is maybe at 2, last meal is maybe at 6:30, much later.
Got it. What is your favorite song?
Song.
Yeah. What gets you going?
Oh, what is my favorite song? That's not fair. So I'm an oldie kind of guy.
Nothing wrong with
So I love, my wife is listening to me. She's going to go, oh my God. I love Barbara Streisand.
that. Okay.
My wife already gagged. So I love Barbara Streisand, and I love her albums in the beginning because she's got 1 million albums.
Mhm.
I love it. I don't care what she's singing. I just love it.
What's on your nightside table?
Very interesting. So part of my unconventional cancer protocols is that I use pulsed electromagnetic field therapy to support my cell membrane and mitochondria, because cancer is a disease of dysfunctional metabolism, and dysfunctional mitochondria. So pulse electromagnetic field therapy has been shown, and there's 20 years of research that you can find on PubMed.
Do you use the pulse machine or the beamer?
So let's just say I use another machine. Many of the machines create only one frequency and a lot of voltage spikes, which is what you just mentioned. And the other one, and many of those do, one that I use has quite a number of patents that filters out voltage spikes and has a wave pattern of around 10,000 low frequency harmonic waves, which talk to the individual cells. Every cell has its own frequency, and that's what I use. So what's on my side is a control box for my mat that is laying in my bed that looks like a yoga mat.
Very nice. All right. And then last question.
Uh-oh.
What legacy do you want to leave
Yes.
this world?
Yes. That's a great question. And I write about it constantly. Number one, memories are everything. Quality of life is made up of memories. Material stuff means nothing. So memories that you make I'm almost 74 years old, so I can talk about this. And I have a terminal cancer, so I can talk about this. Everything is boiling down to the memories that you create in your head. That's the only thing you have to leave. Now, one of the other things that it's more physical that I want to leave is the knowledge that I have literally learned to heal my body from this terminal disease I have. And I've not done chemotherapy. I've just developed these unconventional cancer protocols that are not curing my cancer, but they're allowing me to heal my body and produce a very significant, robust immune system. And those methods, I want to get out to anybody and everybody that wants to listen and hear about.
Perfect. Well, ladies, if that interests you, if you guys want to hear more about Dr. Al's unconventional cancer protocols, write me up in the Facebook group, the Women in Wellness Facebook group. Say, bring back Dr. Al. We want to talk about his protocols. And if you're okay with it, Dr. Al, we'll set up a time
absolutely.
where we can talk about it.
I'd love it.
That would be wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and really hitting home how important microbiome is, whether it's in the mouth, whether it's in the gut, and how we have to balance it, not just beat it down. It is so important.
Well, it's been a wonderful opportunity meeting you, but a wonderful opportunity to share this with your listeners. And I'm an open book. I want to share everything that I have.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. And before we end this, why don't you tell all of my tribe where they can find you?
So my website is drdannenberg.com. So it's DRDANENBERG.com. There is a navigation bar that one button says contact. If you have any questions, just hit that, write your questions. Email comes directly to me. I answer all my emails. I can give you answers to things that you need. I also have a blog page, and there's over 500 articles that I've written. So if you put in a word in a search engine, any articles that I've written about that subject will pop up.
Wonderful. All right, ladies. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and let me know if you guys want him to come back on and talk about his unconventional cancer protocols. So thank you so very much, and I look forward to talking with you more.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Women in Wellness as much as I did. If you did, please leave a review and a rating so that others can also benefit from the information being shared. Make sure to subscribe as new content is released on Women in Wellness Wednesdays. And if you want to connect with us, go online to womeninwellness.com. That's women, the letter N, wellness.com. I look forward to seeing you next time.